All right, here we go. So, again, I am here to talk to you guys about icon design and management. When I was first approached with this concept and asked to speak to you guys, I wanted to start at the beginning. I wanted to make sure that, from my point of view and the information I was sharing, that we really understood, and I really understood, what an icon truly is. And really, this part was the most eye-opening to me of everything I found out. In the context that we talk about icons in our industries, there's actually not a real definition for an icon. The dictionary defines it as an object of uncritical devotion. When we talk about product, this obviously is not the case. We're very critical about the things we see, the things we interact with. So what I found was, it's really more a set of principles that people have come up with over time and applied to products to really identify it as a true icon. So what I did was, through my research and my experiences through Nike and Converse, I put together what I felt were 4 basic overarching filters that really defined an icon. So, my 4 principles: innovates. It solves a problem. It's the first, best, or most unique, most distinctive. Innovation is not invention. Innovation is taking something that we use and know very well in our day-to-day life and improving it for the consumer to look at the product in a new way and to interact with it in a new way. Secondly, unique. They pave the way for others to follow. Every brand, every icon, every product goes through a path through history, and no two are the same. And you have to remember that what worked for Converse maybe won't work for you, but I believe that there are small things that we can pull from other people's histories and learnings and apply to our products and to our businesses. Thirdly, evokes passion, creates mass impact with a deep consumer connection. This is where we find and see that the consumer truly does decide, and they are the ones that lead companies down the path. We heard earlier that you not only need to speak to your consumer, but you need to listen, even more importantly, listen to them. And through that, the product is shaped and becomes what it is throughout time. And then finally, timeless, able to withstand the test of generations. How do you make a product that is able to span a multi-generational age gap and also transcends taste and trend? I think through these principles, my hope is that you guys will see an icon is one, it is deeply connected to the brand image. It doesn't explain, it infers. And finally, it is something that we take, we live with, and it influences our day-to-day experiences. So what I'll do just to kick it off is I pulled a few icons throughout history across different product types just to get everybody on the same page of what an icon is. So I began with furniture, the Eames lounge chair. First released in 1956 by Charles and Ray Eames. Charles noted that his inspiration was the comfortable feel of a first baseman's glove. Once it was created, Ray said that it looked undesigny and comfortable. So through this undesigny filter, you actually created this beautiful product made of simple materials, plywood, leather, and metal, that has influenced and been duplicated and imitated throughout since its release throughout history. Next, into fashion, the Burberry trench coat. Sure, something we're all very familiar with here. Burberry is actually noted as one of the inventors of the trench coat. In the 1890s, Thomas Burberry created a material that was lightweight, breathable, waterproof, and he took this material and put it into this new silhouette called a trench coat, and it was offered initially to the military. So you see a product that was born out of function has now become a style icon and a fashion icon that can be found on runways and high-end stores across the world. Next, Levi's denim, something that touches all of us deeply and has really changed the face of apparel and fashion forever. Levi Strauss in 1873 was granted the patent for riveting pants, and the blue jean was born. I don't know if there's any one single piece of apparel that has really changed our perception in our culture as much as Levi's denim has. Next, the obligatory Apple example, the Apple iPod. Initially released in 2001, it was 1,000 songs in your pocket. Apple is known for their beautiful, simplistic, intuitive design language, and the iPod was the epitome of this. Not only did they offer you a beautiful, innovative product, but through iTunes, they changed the way business and interacting with product and music forever. And finally, the Converse Chuck Taylor All-Star, something that's obviously near and dear to my heart. And this is the point that what I'd like to do from here on is give you guys an insider's look into Converse, and specifically the All-Star, and how we have evolved, changed, and managed this icon, and how it relates back to my 4 filters. So first, innovates. The Converse non-skid, it was introduced in 1917. This was a simple basketball shoe, one of the biggest sports in America at the time. It was made of canvas, rubber, and a little bit of leather, baked in an autoclave oven, and little did they know, and we know, that it would change the face of sneaker culture forever. In 1920, the non-skid was rebranded as the Converse All-Star. At the same time was when a gentleman named Charles Taylor joined the company as a basketball player and player coach for the Converse company basketball team, the Converse All-Stars. It wasn't until 1934 that it was renamed the Converse Chuck Taylor. But here in the 20s is where you start to see the design evolve a little bit. You have the addition of a toe bumper. The ankle patch is now more pronounced. And this is the point in time that Converse really starts to celebrate and talk about innovation. So in the 20s, they began the Converse Yearbook. This was basically a publication that was offered to coaches, players, the general public, basically to offer a publication about their product. Here you'll see where they really is the first time they start talking about the true benefits and innovations that the Chuck Taylor offers you. Perfect fit, minimum weight, maximum traction, long wear, durability. Really with the construction and the materials they used, it really did lend itself to these properties, which is still something that we stand by today and we still lean on, this simple construction, simple materials. So continuing in 1928, it was noted that Converse had made some of the greatest improvements and changes in basketball history. They added an orthopedic shank, claiming to give you the most authentic and perfect fit possible in a sneaker. They offered a pivot point where it reduced impact 25% without changing the height of your outsole. My favorite is they claim that the rubber would stick like glue to any surface from the moment it was worn. And Converse made it a point to say these are not talking points, these are facts. They are tested by elite athletes across the world that have proven that this is the most innovative product in the marketplace. Even into the 1960s and 70s, they were still talking about their improvements. Updated cushioning, the release of the Oxford model, the low-cut model, gave you a more low-profile fit, extra flexibility. They also started to incorporate improved textiles. They started offering it in military duck canvas to military spec to increase durability. This duck canvas is something that we've have re-engineered today to still use and to celebrate. So that brings us to the modern day Chuck Taylor. Really looks the same as it has for really more or less over the past almost 100 years now. When you have a cult classic like the Chuck Taylor, consumer has come to the point where they have an expectation of fit, feel, performance. And we have to be very conscious and considerate when we make innovations and changes to the Chuck Taylor. So the things that we really do at this point are incremental improvements that still doesn't change the DNA or the look feel of the Converse. For example, the rand or the foxing, this is the rubber piece that goes around the shoe. This used to be separately extruded in 4 different pieces and then hand applied together. With technology improvements, we're now able to do this in one piece. You get lighter weight, reduced waste, improvements in manufacturing. We've removed fillers from the inside that you actually never saw or knew was there, but improved cost, improved again, manufacturability. And these are the small improvements that we hope to continue to make to better the consumer experience and the environment. So moving on to unique. Again, this is the point that I would like to bring you guys kind of a bit more through the history of Converse so you can see their path and how it was a unique one, and you can see the times and struggles that we've gone through. So through the 1920s to the 1970s, Converse dominates the sneaker market. They are the one, they are the go-to. It is said that 8 out of 10 basketball players wears the Converse All-Star. In 1970s, color was introduced. So you have to remember now that for 50 years, the #1 selling sneaker was only offered in black and white. It's quite daunting when I think about that now. If that was all we had the opportunity to offer was black and white, what would that look like? It would, it's quite shocking. But color really did change the game for us, right? We offered new expressions to consumers. We offered team hookups for their uniforms. And really, this is something that you'll see later that we still stand behind. That color is still a motivating growth builder for Converse. You'll see here, I skipped to 2001. I will talk to you about the 80s and 90s, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. This was a very interesting time for Converse and some trying times at that. But for the sake of the presentation, skipping to 2001. This is a time that Converse was coming out of multiple bankruptcies. It was working on a skeleton team, maybe 5 to 8 designers, 3 developers. And at this point, they were cranking out product, right? There was a newfound interest in Converse again, and we became everything to everyone. So for 5, 6 years, this works. We're getting the name back out there. We're making more product. But at the end of the day, this is not a sustainable business model. So in 2008, we updated. We went to a good, better, best strategy to better help our consumer, or our marketing and retail partners. We introduced extensions and iterations. What this is keeping the DNA of the Converse Chuck Taylor, but updating midsoles and outsoles or uppers, right? So playing in the same zone, but keeping people, allowing people to still have what they know and love about the Chuck Taylor. We introduced seasonality. You started seeing winterized products. We had our first summer Chuck come out. And there we started to redefine and refocus our collaborations. So fast forward to today, 2013, we've updated again. The market is changing. Converse has to change. So see innovation touched again here, right? Drive innovation at the core. Create and celebrate improvements for this consumer while still giving them all that they love about the Chuck Taylor. As I mentioned before in innovation, these all have to be very considered, very thought out, and deliberate what we're doing to make sure that we're not turning consumers off. The big one that we're really becoming more focused at this point, and this is really the big one, lead sneaker fashion. Owning color, as I mentioned before, this is a huge driver for us. Color is one of your main attractors to product. When you walk through a store, color is the first thing that pulls you into the wall to look at a product, rediscover a product in a new way. So we want to own this, build on this, give people opportunities to express themselves through colors in different ways. Extend with respect. So from extensions and iterations, we found this iteration model wasn't working very well for us. People love the Chuck, and we need to respect that. So what we're going to do now is find ways to tweak. If it's anything, it can be from a women's proposition of adding height to the outsole to give them a platform shoe, or the re-release of the 1970 Chuck Taylor that we've recently done that offers you a higher sidewall, thicker canvas, more of a retro look. Really giving people new opportunities in that core DNA that we're used to seeing. Next, leverage seasonality. You saw we touched on that before, but this is a space we really want to dive deeper in and understand what does that really look like? What does a consumer really want to wear in the spring and summer, and what do they really want to wear in fall and holiday, fall, winter? So you'll see much more deliberate, thought out, and better executed versions of this. Lead and veneering. This is one that's close to my heart. My background from Nike and Converse is really rooted in materials and color. I always say to people, I can give you the most beautiful materials and color palette in the world, but if you, the designer, whoever's taking that, doesn't know how to apply and juxtapose and work within those textiles, those leathers, and that color, the product doesn't have the legs that it would with somebody that's a true expert at this. It's a real skill that we have to understand. Silhouette, form is ultimately important, but if you're not finishing that form properly in a way that inspires the consumer, we're not doing our job. And finally, collaborate. So again, something we've done over the years, but really creating a more hyper-focus on this. Collaboration is something everybody gets excited about. This is the fun area. It gets to play. You get to use, use other brands to elevate your product. But it's all about elevating your product. The collaborations must be smart, thought out, and they need to be equally beneficial for both collaborators. You'll see if people start to collaborate too much, and this is what they become about, the brand gets proliferated. You have too much product again. You're starting to be everything to everyone again, and you start to lose that core DNA of what your company, your brand is truly about. Moving into Evoke's passion. This is the one for me that I get the most excited about. This is what Converse is really about. Again, the consumer decides. So this is the area where I'm going to touch a bit on the 80s and 90s for you guys. Converse was born on the court and adopted by the streets. In 1985, Converse was named the official sneaker of the NBA. But in 1988, the Converse All-Star was removed from the performance line. So you have the most popular shoe for 50 to 70 years that's been rooted in basketball now taken away from performance. So now the company is a bit in dismay. Who are we? What are we? This is also the time that the consumer starts taking the All-Star, the Chuck Taylor, and reappropriating it in new means. They started finding meaning in the product for themselves, but through their own expressions, not necessarily through the expressions that Converse said it should be. So at this time, you start seeing the Converse product show up on musicians, skaters, artists. And you see here Kurt Cobain, the lead singer in Nirvana, seen using the Chuck Taylor throughout the height of his career. Ice Cube, a rapper. Rap was just starting at this time. In my research, I read an interesting article in Spin magazine that it was called The Verbal History of the Converse Chuck Taylor. And it had quotes in there from the then CMO of Converse in the 80s and 90s. And he admitted, he said, Converse did not know what music and rock and roll was. They said they saw themselves more as the Beach Boys than Van Halen. And they admitted they did not know what rap music was. They had no concept of how to take this into their brand and start standing for these different types of consumers, these different experiences. So fast forward to today. Over the past 20 years, from the 80s, we have found, and Converse has found, that the true heart of Converse is unleashing creativity within our consumers. This is written on the walls of our office. It's talked about in all of our big team meetings. And this is something that we believe in offering up to our consumers. We look for different platforms to do this. We know this is what everybody is doing in their Chuck Taylors, so we want to support that movement. One example of this is how we show our passion in music. We've opened a recording studio in Brooklyn, New York called Rubber Tracks. Artists, musicians can go in there and record for free. No cost, no obligation to them, but it gives us a platform to get those musicians out there and for us to have dialogue back and forth with them and really let them experience our brand in a new way. As media and retail begins to change, Converse has to change. Brands have to change. Again, the consumer decides. 37 million likes on Facebook, one of the most liked, if not the most liked brand on Facebook. Almost 500,000 followers on Instagram. Again, we must follow and listen and give our consumers new platforms to express their needs, wants, and desires to us. And we're very much adopt and embrace social media as that platform to do so. So what does that passion lead to? 75 million pairs of Chuck Taylors sold last year. The staggering number, that is over 2 pairs of Chucks per second sold. When I heard this, when they announced it at our big corporate offsite, everybody was just blown away, really. I don't think anybody even within the walls realized the impact that the Chuck Taylor had on the world. So, how do we continue to do this and how do we continue to build on these successes is really our challenge for going forward. 75 million pairs, when you see this number, what really shocked me was people feel as an individual when they wear Converse. They're very much themselves, but it's the most sold sneaker of all time. So I think there's a very interesting balance there of how do we continue to sell sneakers, but continue to make everyone feel that this product is made specifically for them and about them. So we're going to continue to focus on that in the future. And then finally, timeless. Again, has to expand a multi-generational gap, has to touch people on many different levels and really speak to product and consumers. How do you get a product that your child understands and your grandparents understand? It's through having impressions throughout their lifetime that has created meaning and given them opportunities to interact with our products and our company. So from Chuck Taylor, a basketball player in the 1920s, to being reappropriated into new sport cultures, skate. But beyond that, right, artists, artisans, just your everyday person, right? How can I just be comfortable in what I do? From a white shoe in a brown shoe world in the 60s and 70s to now a white painted Chuck for the fashion world in collaboration with Margiela. Converse continues to look for ways to breathe new life into their product. So with that, I would like to say thank you all. I hope that my insights provided something new.